there's no egos in the dressing room. There's no one's any different to anybody else, and it doesn't matter who you are, how much you've been bought for, what you've done, what you've played. You're not better than this person, so nobody's better than anybody else.
The official Manchester City podcast.
Welcome to the official Manchester City podcast with me, Rob Pollard, and as always, I'm joined by former City defender Nedum. And for this episode, we're joined by Scott Carson, a man who joined Manchester City in 2019 and has had a really storied career. He's played for lots of different clubs and obviously played for England as well. So, Nedum, you know Scott pretty well.
Yes.
What are you most looking forward to here today?
Just hearing him speak and talk about his time at City, talk about his career, and really remind people how significant he actually is. And also, like, a lot of people just see him from the outside as just the name, that's at City, but this is a real person. And I love this podcast because it allows people the chance to actually show who they are. And all being well, as long as you don't scare him away, then I think he'll do just that.
And I think as well, I'm fascinated by the mindset of a third choice goalkeeper and, how do you stay mentally prepared, physically prepared and all that kind of stuff. But also, every player we ever interview, if you mention Scott Carson, they have got nothing but great things to say about him in terms of the impact he's had in the dressing room, in terms of the role he plays out on the training pitch and all that kind of stuff. So I really just want to dig deep on kind of how he perceives his own role and what more he's got to give.
Yeah, Scott will be, like what it is, he'll be very self-aware. Nothing you said about teammates. Like, I played with him in 2007, and the same things you're hearing today, the same things I would have said from his time back there. So I think he'll be very, very good, and I wouldn't be surprised if, the idea of a third choice goalkeeper, I think some people see it as like a holiday, but I think for Scott, I reckon he'll be very much motivated to try and get into the team, but understands his position because he's so self-aware.
Fantastic. Right, let's get into it. So here's our interview with Scott Carson.
Basically, my childhood was football. That was it. Was born in a town called Cleatamore. There wasn't a lot to do apart from getting into trouble and playing football. So basically out of the house when it was light and back before it was dark, just playing football, and that's all we did. And the village started getting a team together, and I think it was under 10s. I think it was. I think I was a couple of years younger than most of my mates. So I think I was about 8 at the time. Went up for a few trials, and how I wanted to go in goal, I still don't know to this day. I think
you wanted to go in goal?
Well, I remember just going up for the first training session. I must have just got bullied and got into the...
Have you got any kids now?
Yeah.
How old are they?
Oldest 17.
Yeah.
13, 11 and 6.
Okay. And do they play football?
Yeah.
Do any of those want to go in goal?
The youngest one, but he's a little bit mad, so...
There we go. That's the connection. Yeah. That's the one.
I can understand it. The other ones I've said, you want to score the goals, but...
That's exactly right.
He's mad as a box of frogs, so okay. I can half understand it.
You must be delighted with the career you've had, because you've been in played in so many different clubs and had a really interesting trajectory. What have you made of it? And did you expect when you first started going in goal that it would lead to a full-time professional career in the way that it has?
No, not at all. Obviously, it was any boy's dream to go professional, and I literally worked my socks off from probably the age of 12, 13 when I knew I had a bit of ability, and it was just literally every day after training in the garden, get my mum to throw balls at me and diving over cones with broomsticks over them to get my spring better, waking my mates up with ladders to the bedroom 9 o'clock on a Saturday, Sunday morning to get them to take shots at me. And I think that hasn't stopped it. Even now, I just love getting out there, diving around, and I've always felt I've given 100% every club I've been at, and even now I still think I've probably improved the last couple of years since I've been here. And I think as long as you've got that drive when you're on the training ground, then you can go on as long as your body tells you to.
Just watched a clip of today's training. It's you who always stays behind when the lads want to do shooting practice. Do they ask you, or is that just because, like you say there, you just love rolling around, diving, saving shots?
Yeah, both, but obviously I'm the third choice keeper. I think that's half of my job role is to help the lads if they need anything. Obviously, the 2 lads are playing a lot more games than me, and they could be called upon at any time. If the lads want to do a bit of heading, bit of shooting, or a bit of crossing or whatever, then I'm there to help them, and obviously that means staying behind. It's 10-15 minutes. It's not a massive thing to do, but I do feel that's part of my role to be there to do that.
Do you think that's brought you closer to a lot of the players because you spend so much time with them outside of their normal sort of like training hours, doing extra with them or not?
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, it's going to make the bond with certain players a lot tighter, but the atmosphere in that dressing room from probably 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning when we come in and everyone's round the big laundry bin in the middle, and we're playing two-touch and people are getting ears flicked and people are getting slapped on the neck, and we're going into the meeting with Pep, and you're sitting behind some lads and you just see all the necks are red and people are just laughing. That's the sort of thing that does bring squads and groups closer together. And
yeah,
I think it was only the first probably 10 days, 2 weeks I came in, and I was obviously I'd been at loads of clubs, been at some top teams with a lot of top players, and you still that first day, second days, you still get so nervous. It's like, obviously everyone says it's like going to school for the first time again, and you don't want to look too awkward. And I'm sitting on the phone, still in there,
just texting yourself, that type of thing.
Still in the Derby goalkeepers group, going. I'm just looking on my phone, pretending I'm looking at something when just trying not to be awkward.
So he brought you out of your shell then, because obviously you have become really kind of central to the camaraderie and the dressing room. All the players tell us that. So how do you go from sitting on your phone for the first couple of weeks to being that character? Who was it? Was there a person who dragged you out? Was it just a natural evolution of your own personality, really?
No, I've always liked a laugh and a joke in the dressing room and even on the training ground. But when you've got to get down to business and focus and train hard, then that obviously goes aside. But I've always been, obviously I've played with Chief at England U21s, and
I've always, feels like a lifetime ago.
I've always worked hard, had a laugh off the field. So I think it was only a matter of time that I would become my natural self again. But it was, you just feel like
a bit daunting.
It's definitely daunting. Yeah, there's, to look around the dressing room. I've always felt, even the lads that come in now, I always feel that I try to help them settle. There's no egos in the dressing room. There's no one's any different to anybody else, and I think that's probably one thing I've always felt in my whole career, that doesn't matter who you are, how much you've been bought for, what you've done, what you've played. You're not better than this person, so nobody's better than anybody else, and that's how I've always took myself and how I always take everybody else, and I think that's just me being who I am.
I could ask you about so many people in the squad, but I want to ask you about two in particular. One is Edison. He's an enigma to us. What's he like? Because you know him well. You train with him every day. What is he like as a person?
He's a top fella. I don't know what goes on in his head sometimes.
That's a lot coming from Scott as well, by the way.
At the start, when I first came in, the first 2-3 weeks, and I'm trying to speak to him, he's trying to speak to me. I don't have a clue what he's saying. He's probably not got a clue what my Cumbrian accent's saying to him. And then by the end of probably 3 weeks, he'd say something, I'd just laugh, and I'd say something, and he'd just laugh. And I think from then we just started getting on, and ever since then we've gotten really well. And I think he can see, like I said before, like a laugh and a joke, but when we go on the training ground, he can see how hard I train and how hard I want to work. And I think that respect that we've got for each other is obviously evident for everyone to see.
And the other one is a guy who I've always loved, great guy, Xabi Mancisador, our goalkeeping coach. Pep says he's the best in the world. What do you think of him, both in terms of him as a person, but also his methods that he brings to the training pitch?
Yeah, obviously, when I first came, I didn't know what to expect with the training. Obviously, Xavi's Spanish guy. I've only had one Spanish coach before, and I think I was 18 or 19, and I've really struggled for it, and I was thinking, going to be a struggle for me. I'm going to probably naive Englishman thinking, English is the best, this is the best. And then I come and Xavi slowly taught me the stuff, taught me the techniques, and probably that's why I've just said 5 minutes ago, I feel like I've definitely improved the last couple of years, and a lot of the things that he's taught me is hopefully something that I can use in the future if that's the coaching line I go down. And it would be definitely something that I would use, because I've seen the benefits of it, and hopefully I can improve other people with them.
See what he did there? He's just revealed his next career choice after he retires in 10 years' time. He's talking about being a goalkeeping coach. The if is irrelevant. The fact he's mentioned it means that it's real.
But you're kind of in a transition almost anyway, because you're basically saying as a third choice, you have to do a bit of extra work afterwards. Do you feel like you are transitioning into a coaching role anyway, kind of naturally?
No, I wouldn't say that. I feel like the older I've got, the more I do want to help people. And
yeah,
obviously I know I'm not going to play week in, week out. So I'm not one who he's happy just to come in, train, go home. I feel like I do have to give something, whether it be before training, which like I said before, I feel like I have helped with, because the dressing room now compared to how it was when 2-3 years ago, it's chalk and cheese. So I do feel I've helped in that way, in the camaraderie side in the dressing room. But whether it be the young players or even Eddie, I think everyone knows that I'm open. If they need any advice, if anything, I'm there. And I think that's just by getting older and with the experience.
Yeah. So everything he's saying is like spot on. I can picture him being that person within that space. But when you came to City, was this the first time where you were going to be a third choice goalkeeper? What made you think that was the right thing for you to do in that particular moment? And secondly, as you arrived, was there any sort of sense of like almost like an imposter syndrome, as in like, why am I here? Because from the outside, everyone was talking about, well, they signed this guy, and they signed Scott Carson. But how did you let that essentially not trouble you? Because City wanted you, and that's obviously the biggest thing.
Yeah, to be fair, that was a tough couple of weeks that before I came. Obviously, I'm coming off a couple of probably my best seasons with Derby, and then to find out when I was away in pre-season that they're trying to offload you, come a bit of a shock first, and then second was obviously my family was really settled in that area, and I felt if something comes up that I feels right, then I'll look at it, but I want to fight for my place. I still think I can offer a lot. I've been the number one goalkeeper, and obviously the time went on, and then my agent rang and said, Man City want you to go as third choice, and obviously still in my head, I
still a number one.
I was a number one keeper fighting to be number one. I think the biggest thing was obviously I spoke to Xavi. He obviously told me what'll happen. Yeah, you're not going to be playing every week, but we feel we spoke to enough people to know the character that you are, that you can help the group, you can help the keepers. And I had to think about it, and my agent come back to me and he was like, let's go and speak to Xavi, let's go and see what you think. He went, but I don't think you really want to go and train with the under 23s at Derby. He said, I've known you long enough, I know your character you are, you'll struggle with it.
Yeah.
So you either learn off the best manager in the world, learn off Xavi, see what his ideas are behind goalkeeping, and obviously train with the best players in the world. So make a decision. And it was, when you sit down and think, it's, yeah, you lose that feeling of playing week in, week out, and from day to day, there's no difference.
Yeah,
you're training, you get that buzz. It's only when you get to the stadiums, the fans come in, you go off for the warm up, and you're like, I do miss that feeling. But like you said before, I feel like I've been lucky in my career. I've had a really good career, played nearly 500 games or so. So obviously sometimes the roles do change.
I think to jump in on that point, because again, it's loads of great points. The third choice goalkeeper is in a very tough spot, but they're different types, because there's someone like Scott who misses playing. So if the chance comes to play, he's excited about playing. But people perceive it sometimes from the outside as somebody that doesn't just want to play ever. They just want to sit there. I think that's something that needs to really be addressed. Like, we don't often get the chance to speak to someone in your position, but I think that's really important in hearing that, because it sort of changes the whole context around the nature of a squad. Like, everyone can play and everyone wants to play, but unfortunately everyone gets the opportunity to. So add the other sort of value to the other side of things.
I think this is a good time to ask Kyle Walker's question, actually. So on the podcast, the previous guest sets a question for the next guest without knowing who it is. Kyle Walker's question, without knowing it was you, was, are you happy? As of today, are you happy with your City career so far? I think this is a good time to ask you that.
Am I happy with my City career? Yeah. Someone watching this or listening to this would say, you've played one game and 20 minutes. What's there to be happy about that? But I feel I've done a lot more behind the scenes.
Yeah. And that's the feedback we get from every player and every coach says exactly the same thing, yeah.
I don't think I've just came here and done the minimum I could. I think I've came here, I've set standards, even still at my age, to see what I do day in, day out. So would I have loved more games? Of course I would. Everyone wants to play. That's the pinnacle, to play on a Saturday, but it is what it is. There's two top keepers in front of me now. There was Zach when he was here. There's Claudio. So I'm realistic enough to know that unless they're injured or whatever, then I'm not going to play. But that's not going to stop me every single day working hard, coming in, smile on my face, and if the manager needs me, I'm going to be ready.
With all your experience, a coaching career would seem like a good thing to pursue. Do you ever consider kind of getting involved with any of our academy goalkeeping setups and helping them? Because with all, with everything you've experienced, you'd be able to help some of our young kids, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I hope so. But even now, obviously, people probably look on from the outside or whatever and say, "Oh, you're 37, you must be calling it a day soon." But
still feel fit.
Still fit. Body's really good, and I don't know how old I was at the time. Probably 26, 27. I always had a vision of that. I wanted to get to 40, still playing. So I'm not far off. So
no, you're close.
Yeah.
You're close. You're trying to write him off talking about coaching.
No, not at all.
Ridiculous.
Not at all. I'm just
I'll clip that. You know what
come
I
on
mean?
a podcast and get retired off.
Oh, mate.
Sorry. I'm a forward-thinking guy. I have got one question about Liverpool. This is obviously a City podcast. I don't want to talk about Liverpool too much. But you're involved in one of the most amazing football matches I've ever seen, which was the Champions League final in Istanbul. You were part of the squad that night. A lot's been said about the game itself, but just that rumour or suggestion that maybe some of the AC Milan players were a little bit celebratory, shall we say, after 45 minutes, and that sort of spurred the players on. Is there any truth in that?
It's that long ago, I can't really remember too much about it. I remember coming in and everyone obviously being distraught, and we had a Scottish coach. I don't know if he was number 2 to Benitez, but he was obviously an assistant manager, and I just remember him saying, "Come on, get one. If we get one, the Reds will drop a bit and we'll get another one, and then we'll get the third." And I remember just looking, thinking, I don't think that's the
it's not
the right
the way it
time.
turns to happen in the Champions League.
No, it's a Champions League final just being played off the park, and then what happens? 1, 2, 3, and it's like, just couldn't believe it.
Unbelievable. Yeah. One of the greatest teams of the last 20, 30 years, that AC Milan team as well.
Watching them the first half, how well they played, and sort of a good Liverpool side apart, but I think there was obviously a few rumours about kissing the cup before and touching the cup and touching the balls and all sorts of stuff that goes on, and
that sort of stuff annoy players.
Some, but we only ever really hear about it when that team loses.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. That's the thing. It probably happens a lot more than you think. Otherwise, people wouldn't continually be doing it. So I wouldn't necessarily buy into that too much. But interestingly, in that game, that idea of one at a time, that's what we saw in that sort of behind the scenes with Pep last season in the Aston Villa game, where it says we get one goal, then it's going to be another goal. And I think sometimes people try and think as if you're going to score 3 at the same time. It's just little by little. Do you know what I mean?
City pretty much did score 3 in the same time in that Villa game. 3 in 5 minutes.
It went from like there's not enough time to now there's too much time on the clock as you're 3-2 up.
But you know what it's like. Even in any normal game, you're winning 2-0 and someone scores in the last 5 minutes to make it 2-1. Your demeanour just changes, doesn't it?
It's horrendous.
You've got so much. Your chest's out and everything, and then straight away
it's like anxiety.
It's like the wind comes and everyone just starts coming to what it's
Exactly.
What about your time in Turkish football? Was that a daunting move before you went out there?
Yeah, that was another obviously big decision I had to make. I think I had a year left on my contract at West Brom, but Roy Hodgson came in and he said if I want to move on, I can move on. So it was something I had to look at. The option obviously came up, and I had 2 young kids. My wife was heavily pregnant at the time, so it was, do I want to take my kids out there and try to see what it's like? But in the end, we all went. I didn't really want to drop down the leagues in England, so I thought, why not? Still going to be playing in a decent league, still in Europa League, so I feel like you just need to play at the highest level for as long as you can, and just coming off probably a not so great season for West Brom, so I don't think there was too many takers at the time, and I felt by going there I could probably re-establish my career, get some confidence back and get to know myself, know my game, and I felt I did that. Went there, had two decent seasons, and then came back with Wigan.
How old were you when you went over there?
I think I was 26.
26, still quite young.
I think that was my 3rd season at West Brom, but you know when you feel sometimes you'd go to a club and as much as you want it to work, the atmosphere is good, you like it there, but I just never felt that I played as well as I could play.
Just not clicking for you.
No, yeah. And it was frustrating because I was doing everything. I was training harder.
How did you not doubt yourself in that time?
How did
you not doubt yourself? Like to keep going, like to think that the answer's there. Because for some people, you've seen it yourself across so many years, some people just disappear within themselves and they can't play anymore.
No, but I always knew at the back of my mind that I wouldn't say I was a top goalkeeper, but I felt I was a steady Premier League goalkeeper. I'd done it at Charlton, I'd done it at Aston Villa. I felt that I should have a career in the Premier League, but when you're putting everything in a weekly basis and then you're just not playing well on a Saturday, you do start doubting yourself, and then obviously at the end of the season when the manager says he wants to change it up, and
it's tough, yeah.
Obviously something like Turkey comes up where you do seriously have to think about it, but thankfully looking back, it probably was the right decision at the right time, and took me out of probably the spotlight for a little bit. And
I need to comment on something. You said steady, but I think that devalues what you're trying to say, because I think it's a good Premier League goalkeeper. When someone says steady, it doesn't sound impressive.
Yeah, if you're steady as a goalkeeper, that's pretty good going, isn't it?
But it's not. But that's the word, though. I think good is the right word. Yeah. And the reason I say good is because to be a Premier League goalkeeper is the stuff that 99% of goalkeepers dream of doing. Yeah. And to be as good as, say, you are and you were in that time, I wouldn't call that steady. As I say, I'd call that a very good Premier League goalkeeper, for sure.
I appreciate that. Looking back on my career, it's had a lot of ups, a lot of downs, but I do think I'd probably played close to 150 Premier League games or something. Out of that time, probably feel like I've performed consistently well. And even from when I come back from that move in Turkey, I felt like I come back with a lot more confidence, and then obviously went to Wigan, then went to Derby not long after that, and felt I probably had my best 3-4 years in my whole career. And I felt that was obviously on the back of that, just getting myself out of the country, away from the spotlight. And
so it was a good move for you at the right time. But is there a story about a Swiss Army knife out there?
Yeah, it's true.
Tell us. Yeah, go on. Tell us that. I read this one. It sounded quite interesting.
Like here, obviously, if there's a bit of snow here and there's a bit of snow goes on the stands, the game's off, isn't it, for health and safety and all that. But the pitches are covered. You can't even get your studs in the ground sometimes. And I'm like, I'll be playing on this. And I think we played in Trabzonspor, and their fans are, most fans in Turkey, they're really passionate. And I can't remember exactly what score it was, but we just getting before half time and the snow's coming down. Next thing, I just feel something come past my head, and I'm knocking down. Pick it up, it's a proper Swiss Army knife. It's got a bit of weight to it, and I was like, jeez. And then the ref blows the whistle, and I walk down and I say to I think he was like wasn't an interpreter, but he spoke English, and I said to him, go check, what's this? And then as I picked up like that, one of the coach staff come, and he went, as if like, give me it. So I give it to him, and then didn't think nothing of it, went in. And at the end of the game, a couple of them coming to me, Carson, thank you. I said to go, what they're saying thank you for? I'll just give him a Swiss Army knife that I took my head off with. He went, yeah, because if you'd have went to the ref with that and showed the referee, they'd have had, all the fans would have been banned out the stadium for a couple of games. So
incredible.
They were happy.
Slightly different.
So you did him a big favour there.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Okay, so we're going to do the final few questions. Everyone who comes on the podcast asks a question for the next guest, but we don't tell you who that guest is going to be. So what would your question be for our next mystery guest?
I think my question for the next guest would be, what's the greatest game of football you've ever been involved in?
Brilliant.
It's not bad, that.
Yeah, good.
I think the next guest would like that one.
And I think has probably got quite a few on the list, that you'll be able to talk about.
No
so
spoilers,
that's a good one.
No spoilers.
Another one, if you could change any rule in football, what would it be?
I think it would, especially with all the debates going on at the minute with all these penalties and stuff, as a keeper, we're going to have to have our hands be tied behind our backs soon for penalties and not going to be able to move. So that is getting to me a little bit, and especially when players can run up, stop, do these fakes and all that sort of stuff. I think there has to be a balance on that. Whereas obviously Martinez is getting a lot of stick from before the penalties, after the penalties, but someone can run up, do these fakes, do these jumps. I think there has to be a little bit of a balance. So I think there's got to be something done to make it fair on both sides.
That's really interesting. I didn't even thought of that.
It's because you wouldn't. It's because the goalkeeper said it. That's why.
You've seen it from a goalkeeper's position, yeah. And then the final one, what was the last thing that you binged? Like, was there a series on Netflix or podcast series or anything like that you've just kind of flown through?
What was the last one I just watched? Kind of been that quick because I forgot what it was. No, I'll tell you what I do like. SEAL Team. I think it's on Sky, I think it is. So I think there's quite a few, 6 series or something, and we've been through them in a good few months, and I think there's another one coming back on. So we're waiting for that. It's an easy watch, the Marines.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Scott Carson, really enjoyed that. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Paulinho, good save, Scott Carson. He comes onto the field for a little cameo and makes the game's best save. Scott Carson, take a bow.
The official Manchester City podcast with Rob Pollard and Nedum Manua.
Scott Carson there, Nedum. I don't know about you, I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, Sam, I absolutely did. And like his role and him at City is one of those things where you don't hear a lot from him. You kind of see him every so often. But for him to actually get the chance to speak, I feel like a lot of people really like him. And and maybe I'm biased because I did play with him and I do like him, but it's no point in the podcast, isn't it? Hearing some voices you might not normally hear.
What was your experience of him when you played with him, as both as a person and a player?
Well, he looked the same way as he does today when he was 21. So basically, he was like the old man amongst the youngsters, even though he was young himself.
He had a tough paper out, although still looks fit.
2 bags uphill into win. Twice a day.
Physically still looks fit to me.
And you can hear like he's got that desire to keep playing as well. He's fit, mentally he's ready to go. And it just goes to show like we so often throw our own sort of like assumptions onto people, or presumptions rather, but for him, he's good to go. What a great professional, and he's still got more years to come as well.
And I know we were joking about kind of retiring him and trying to find a career.
Yes, you did try and retire him, yes.
Find a career after the game. But there's a coach there, surely, with that experience and, all the clubs he's been at and now being at City, working with Xabi, who is, widely accepted to be one of the great goalkeeping coaches of modern times.
Yeah.
He's got something to give back to the game there, surely.
Yeah, I think he has. I think lots of people would do as well. But from listening to his voice, you can tell that he loves being in this environment.
Yeah.
And I think that's the fundamental thing you need to have if you want to be a successful coach, and he's definitely got that.
Well, Nedum, thank you for being with us as well. And make sure you download the Manchester City app. That's the best place to get all of the latest news and goings on at Manchester City. And if you want to get a City Plus subscription, we've got some great documentaries on there as well. And until next time, thank you for listening and join us again soon.
The official Manchester City podcast. Watch the full video version of this show via City Plus and Recast Now. This podcast is produced by Voiceworks Sport and Manchester City.